All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. It's that time of the week, folks. My key games for the upcoming weekend in the world of college football and conference championship weekend is here. We've got some games scheduled to go down tomorrow, as well as the remaining contest taking place on Saturday. And it's a slew of key games this weekend, a lot that have playoff implications, bowl implications as well, as conference championship weekend is about to be in full effect. Going to start off tomorrow night in Vegas as you got the Pac 12 championship taking place, as you're going to have the fourth ranked USC Trojans clashing with the 11th ranked Utah Utes. And of course, things are different this year for the Pac-12 championship game. No North and South. It's just the top two teams from the Pac-12 getting it on in Vegas. And of course, in years past, both USC and Utah would have been in the Pac-12 South, but they played each other this year, and this is the rematch. Now, everything is on the line for USC as they look to get to the college football playoff. We saw them jump up a couple of spots after they knocked off Notre Dame at home over the weekend, but Utah stands in their way as far as getting to the college football playoff. Remember, Utah beat USC earlier this year. They were the only team to defeat the Trojans this year so far. A 1 point victory for the Utes at Rice Eccles Stadium in Salt Lake City. But that game took place about 6 weeks ago. So let's see how things are going to change for both of these teams. In the rematch tomorrow, what USC needs to do defensively, they have to find a way to contain Utah quarterback Cam Rising. They cannot let him get on the edge and start making plays with his legs, because once he does that, he opens things up for the rest of this offense. And they also have to find a way to slow down tight end Dalton Kincaid. You slow down Rising, you slow down Kincaid. It's that simple. But of course, it's easier said than done. I want to keep an eye on Clark Phillips in that secondary for Utah. 6 interceptions on the season. And will this Utes defense be able to force SC quarterback Caleb Williams into making some mistakes? We've seen Caleb Williams have a Heisman like season so far. He's been in full effect for USC, and this team is coming right now. Lincoln Riley is doing his magic again. We saw him do this at Oklahoma, and now, he's taking it to the West Coast, and he's not skipped a beat as he has USC on the verge of making the playoff. Austin Jones has really stepped in, carrying the ball in the place of the injured Travis Dye. That's going to be big in this game, of course, again, to give USC's offense that balance. And then, of course, you look at their receivers with Mario Williams, Jordan Addison, and Taj Washington. Can they continue to get on top of these Utah DBs just like they did earlier this season? Tui Pulotu, 12 and a half sacks so far for USC. Can he put some pressure on Cam Rising? This SC defense, they give up yards, but they force turnovers, and they also have 19 interceptions to go along with 35 sacks. I think that Vegas is going to be buzzing tomorrow night. This is going to be a stellar game, and I think SC has enough to pull away from Utah in this one, who is looking to repeat as Pac-12 champions. But I'm going to take the Trojans by the score of 45-34. Now, moving ahead to Saturday at Arlington, you're going to have the Big 12 championship game, as you're going to have the 10th ranked Kansas State Wildcats taking on the 3rd ranked TCU Horned Frogs. And of course, the big question is, will the dream season for TCU continue? Sonny Dykes has come in and he's gotten things turned around in a quick matter for the Horned Frogs. And of course, Max Duggan, their star quarterback, is looking like a Heisman candidate. Now, it's not just about Max Duggan. You look at the way Kendre Miller runs the football. He's a physical back. He gets to that second level, and he has that burst to run away from defenders. 14 team picks for this Horned Frogs defense so far won't be important in this game, because K-State They stick to their bread and butter. They love to run the football with Adrian Martinez and Deuce Vaughn. Now, the Wildcats only have 2 losses on the season, and one of those came courtesy of TCU as they lost in Fort Worth by 10 points. So, of course, not only do they have revenge on their minds, but also they want to go out there and win this contest and get to the Sugar Bowl. AT&T Stadium is going to be rocking. There's going to be plenty of purple in the crowd on Saturday afternoon, but I think it's going to be more folks for TCU than K-State. And with that said, I'm going to take Texas Christian to win the Big 12 by the score of 41-30. Now, the marquee conference championship game, and in the words of the late great Keith Jackson, this is the granddaddy of them all. Of course, the granddaddy of them all is the Rose Bowl, but the granddaddy of them all for conference championship games is the SEC championship game. It was the first conference championship game 30 years ago. And, it's been the gold standard for so many years. And with that said, we've been spoiled because we've been accustomed to seeing a top five matchup in this game, with the winner obviously moving ahead to the college football playoff or previously BCS, while the winner or the loser rather possibly getting in, or in some cases not. But it's not going to be the case this year. You have the number one Georgia Bulldogs taking on the 14th ranked LSU Tigers, and things changed in a New York minute in this one. We saw LSU ranked in the top five last week, and they got blown out and embarrassed on the road by Texas A&M. And with that said, that took any chance that the Bayou Bengals had to make the college football playoff disappear. So for Georgia, they're looking obviously to get to the college football playoff. And for some people, they feel like the Bulldogs already are a playoff team. But nonetheless, the Dogs are still looking for their first SEC championship since 2017. And for the defending national champions and head coach Kirby Smart, you got a senior back there at quarterback in one Stetson Bennett. This guy, he's battle tested. And the bottom line is all he does is win games. Dogs always have good running backs, but this time with Kenny McIntosh and Dijon Edwards. Brock Bowers, a tight end, could be a problem for this LSU secondary. And if that's not enough for LSU to have to deal with, Georgia also has the fourth ranked defense. As only three opponents this year have scored 20 points or more against them. Now, for LSU, suffering that defeat last week to Texas A&M was bad enough, but then quarterback Jaden Daniels was injured in that game. And how is he in that bum ankle going to be able to respond against one of the stingier defenses in all of college football? How will LSU play as a whole after they were embarrassed last week by Texas A&M? And of course, some people are going to wonder if this team looked ahead. But if they looked ahead, they also basically forfeited any opportunities that they had to get to the college football playoff because they're done. I think Brian Kelly and his team will respond and play much better than they did last week against A&M. But the bottom line is Georgia is simply a team on a mission. Because of that, I'm going to take the Dogs in this one by the score of 34-20. Now, in the American Athletic Conference Championship game, more than likely the winner of this one is going to get a New Year's Six bowl. As you're going to have UCF traveling to take on Tulane. UCF comes into this contest ranked 22nd in the latest college football playoff poll, while Tulane is 18th. And a win here by Tulane would be their first conference championship since 1998, when they were still in Conference USA. And of course, in those days, Sean King was their quarterback, and then Tommy Bowden was their head coach. And that was his last year before he left to take the Clemson job. Now, for Tulane, they lost at home a couple of weeks ago to the same UCF team. And I think the thing that Tulane needs to do, as opposed to the last contest, obviously win. But also on top of that, they need to get off to a better start. They got buzzsawed early in this one against UCF, and they were fighting an uphill battle for the remainder of that contest. And I think they need to go out there and set the tone, get their crowd in the game, and get their team into the game as a whole. So they got to start strong, and it starts with running back Tyjai Spears. I look at the linebacker play in this one for both sides. I'm looking at Tulane's linebackers in Dorian Williams and Nick Anderson, and they could have an impact. And then Jason Johnson on the flip side for the Golden Knights, as he has 114 tackles on the season. The running game for UCF, and of course, head coach Gus Malzahn with running back RJ Harvey, and then, of course, quarterback John Rice Plumley. who's going to have the edge in this one. Tulane comes into this contest favored by 4 points. The weather won't be a factor. This is going to be a back and forth affair throughout, but I'm going to give the slight edge to Tulane in the rematch, 31-30. Now, keep an eye on the Mountain West Championship game on Saturday afternoon, as you're going to have Fresno State traveling to the Smurf turf to take on Boise State. Boise comes into this game favored by 3 points. They played Fresno earlier this season on the Smurf turf, and Boise beat Fresno State by 20 points. Now, the Bulldogs have not lost since then, and they've really gotten on track with quarterback Jake Hayner. And then keep an eye on running back Jordan Mims in this one. 14 touchdowns on the ground, and he's going to be going up against one of the better defenses in the Mountain West. Wide receiver Jalen Moreno Cropper could have a big time impact on this one for Fresno as well. And then keep an eye on David Perales coming off of that edge with 10.5 sacks. Now, it's going to be 28 degrees at game time. So obviously the temperature favors Boise, and they have to rely on their running back with their running game with running back George Halani, as well as their defense that has 26 sacks on the season to go along with 13 interceptions. This is going to be a back and forth affair. I think it gets colder as the game goes along. The temperature is going to drop, obviously, and the skies are going to get dark. I think that advantage goes to Boise. And because of that, I'm going to take the Broncos at home by the score of 34-30. Now, moving ahead to Saturday night in Indianapolis, you're going to have Purdue trying to spoil Michigan's chances to get to the college football playoff and the Big Ten championship game. And for the second ranked Wolverines, they come in here flying high after their big win in Columbus on the road last week against Ohio State. They're also looking to win the Big Ten for the second consecutive year in blowout fashion, as we saw them run Iowa off the field last year. Now, for Purdue, somebody had to win the Big Ten West, and it was the Boilermakers who got hot down the stretch in order to get this trip to Indy. It could be the gift and the curse, because you win the Big Ten West, but you knew you're going to have to deal with either Ohio State or Michigan, and that's what Purdue has to deal with here. Aiden O'Connell at quarterback, can he get ahead of this Wolverines defense that is second in the nation? That's going to be big. Now, Purdue has talent on offense with Devin Mockabee carrying the ball and Charlie Jones at wide receiver. They have to find a way to put pressure on the Wolverines in this one. I know that this is Purdue's first trip to the Big Ten championship game. It's in their home state, but the crowd obviously is going to favor the maize and blue in this one. And for Purdue, they have to find a way to slow down that wave. Now, no Blake Corum at running back for Michigan, but we saw what Donovan Edwards could do with more than 200 yards on the ground last Saturday against Ohio State. JJ McCarthy at quarterback for the Wolverines is a calm, cool, and collected customer. And if Michigan can't, pardon me, if Purdue's defense can't get to him early, they could be in for a long evening. Everybody expects Michigan to win this game going away, and so do I. As I'm going to take the Wolverines by the score of 37-17. And finally, on Saturday night in Charlotte, you're going to have the ninth-ranked Clemson Tigers facing off against the 20th ranked North Carolina Tar Heels in the ACC championship game. Clemson comes into this contest favored by 7.5 points. But honestly, this is a conference championship game that has lost plenty of its sizzle. We see North Carolina coming into this game on a 2-game losing streak, while Clemson lost their regular season finale at home last Saturday to South Carolina. And with that, their chances to make the college football playoff. Now, for me, this game lost a sizzle from a couple of weeks ago, because there was a possibility that we could have two top 12 teams taking the field for this one. And of course, if Clemson were to beat North Carolina, that would have really enhanced their opportunity to get to the playoff. That changed once North Carolina lost. And then, of course, they magnified it last week by losing at home to NC State. And Clemson is very lucky, because I really felt that the Tigers should have been dropped further due to the fact that they lost at home to South Carolina. But nonetheless, this is what we have. And both of these teams are looking more than likely to get an Orange Bowl bid to the winner here. Now, DJU at quarterback, and of course, he's been up and down throughout his entire career at Clemson. But when he's down, it really affects the flow of this offense. We saw that in the second half in their home loss last week to South Carolina. I think Clemson needs to come out offensively and really attack the line of scrimmage and get things started with Will Shipley at running back because he is the bread and butter and he's the glue that makes this team go. And they really have to feed off of that. Now, this Clemson defense, they have 36 sacks on the season to go with 11 interceptions. Can they make life tough for North Carolina quarterback Drake May? That is going to be the important task for them in this one because Drake May has the ability to throw North Carolina to an ACC championship. He's gotten them this far. Can he get the Tar Heels over the hump on Saturday night? We've got to wait and see. But one thing that DJU and this Clemson offense have going for them in this one, North Carolina's defense is not that good. The Tar Heels bring the 117th ranked defense in the nation to Charlotte for this one. I know that linebacker Eric Gray and Power Echols both have a lot of tackles. That's because they've been on the field a lot this season trying to slow down opposing offenses. And the defense or lack thereof will be the difference in this one for North Carolina. Because of that, I'm going to take Clemson to win the ACC once again, this time by the score of 37-31. So, folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take this time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you have not already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it'll be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. You can check it out. Drop a line and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So, once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin. I'm signing off, saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.